Alex Morgan.
All right, mic check. I don't know if this one's on. Tis? Okay. If you've seen me before, you may have noticed there's something different. I got new shoes. They were $11 at Goodwill, but I can't afford fancy new shoes. I'm too busy spending all my money on magic cards. Seriously, if cards could pay for college, I'd be set. That joke's funny because I'm never going to college. I considered making a house out of them, but it's been too windy lately. I actually went and bought $45 worth of cards with a friend yesterday. Then going to bed that night, all I could think of is how much I wanted more. It's the capitalist in me, you know, the consumerism, or maybe it's just the autism. I haven't figured that out yet. But it's hard for me as a communist to be so materialistic. With magic cards, I'm able to justify it because I only buy from local shops. Collectors Inc., Pieland, Chico Magic. Can't say the same for my obsession with Monster High dolls. Our overlords at Mattel really got me by the throat with that one. I'd go on long road trips, and I used to have a stop at every Target along the way so I could go looking for rare dolls. I don't do that anymore. Chico Magic, great shop. Downtown, it got a new owner recently, and this guy is great. He's so passionate and inviting, maybe too inviting. I've noticed a number of annoying middle schoolers in our magic pool go up since he bought the place. And it's hard for me, because on one hand, I hate kids. And on the other hand, I used to be that annoying middle schooler. And it's places like Chico Magic that made me into who I am today. It'd be hypocritical for me to be mean to these kids who are just trying to play a game and have fun. But by observing them, I realized a few things about my own childhood experiences with magic. Mainly, I was not as good as I thought I was. When you first get into magic, everyone lets you play with their best, most overpowered decks. You feel like a god. I was playing with this kid, and a guy from the magic group, we'll call him Ash. He gave her a mono-red goblins deck. Just so you know, to those of you that don't play magic, that thing fucking destroyed the rest of us. Ash is always doing stuff like that, giving people cards and advice. It makes it really hard to dislike him, and yet somehow I persist. He's just so egotistical, man, and I hate that. I hate people who think they're better at magic than me. And I know I just said I'm not as good as I thought I was. And that's true. I'd argue most magic players are better than me, but they aren't allowed to actually agree with that. This guy, he fucking comes up to me at the beginning of a commander night, and he says, "That vampire deck of yours needs work." I knew what deck he was talking about, and it was the one my boyfriend had played against him last week. And I could have told him a number of things, that it wasn't a vampire deck, that he didn't see it at its full potential because my boyfriend doesn't know how to play it, that it didn't get to do anything cool because he brought turn 3 Windex to a casual commander night. Dick move, by the way. But I didn't say any of those things. I just got really self-conscious and left before the play started. People like that suck, where they're generally nice and good for the community, but there's one thing that ruins them. It's like this comedian I saw when I was just starting out these open mics. He was so sweet, so supportive, and his jokes were so sexist. It feels inconsistent, like bad character writing, and I should know bad character writing. I used to write fan fiction. Speaking of bad character writing, Grey's Anatomy. Horrible show, just infuriating and completely addictive. I almost didn't perform tonight because I was too busy watching it instead of writing my set. But the writing is so inconsistent that every character becomes a horrible person. And the inevitable trappings of a teenage drama, everyone is having sex with each other. Everywhere. My friend nicknamed it Fuck Hospital. And I think I may be biased because I'm celibate, but these pairings make no sense at all. Christina and Burke, Meredith and Derek, these women have the worst taste in men possible. They should be friends with my mom. They could get together, have a little club. That show makes being a doctor seem like the most crazy job of all time, which I work at a rock store, so I know a few things about a crazy work environment. Last week, I'm running the store by myself. A guy comes in, he's eating a granola bar, and he says he wants me to look at his neon opal. I'm sorry, I lost my spot. Of course, he shows it to me, and I immediately identify it as an amethyst. This guy does not like my evaluation, and he starts telling me how actually all gemstones are made from the same minerals, and they just take different amounts of time to form. So really, an amethyst and an opal are the same thing. I give him my customer service smile, and he leaves the shop, but not before dropping his granola bar wrapper on the floor. There's a lot of pseudoscience in the rock community, from rose quartz that heals cancer to Pleiadian crystals, and I don't believe any of it, but I've got a great customer service smile. The people who come in generally range from entertaining to deeply upsetting. One on the further side of that spectrum, 3 people came into the store, 2 guys and 1 girl. Now, the girl was perfectly fine, didn't say anything to me. The guys, on the other hand, they harassed and questioned me for 20 minutes straight. Everything from, what rock is this? A very normal question, to, why are you Muslim and white? A very not normal question. I ended up texting, they made me so comfortable, I actually texted my boss, and he had Stacy, the lady who runs the boba shop next door, come over and watch to make sure everything was okay. Stacy is a terrifying woman. She collects knives and she regularly threatens to kill my boss. And I don't know if she's joking. So I felt safe in her capable hands. I think they were just asking questions to try and prove that they were smarter than me, which men do all the time. Ask me progressively more obscure and specific questions until I finally say I don't know the answer. Then they come up with their own incorrect answer. In this case, the most incorrect answer they came up with was when they asked me to identify a large calcite cluster on the upper shelf. I couldn't remember what it was, so I told them honestly, and that's when one of them butted in and said, "Oh, that's quartz." The other guy looks at our quartz shelf and goes, "Those things? Those are way bigger." This was a cluster of small crystals as opposed to a single large crystal, which is what he was pointing at. And the first guy responds, "Yeah, they start out small like that, and then they grow over time. They're like baby quartz." And I just stood there, absorbing the bullshit. A story from my time back at Inspire, I was walking back to class when I started getting harassed by 2 Chico High boys. Nothing too serious, just yelling things at me. But I started crying and I ran into the nearest classroom available. When I told the teacher what happened, he asked what the boys were yelling, and I said something about my boobs. And he said, "Well, that doesn't make sense. Your boobs aren't that big." Believe it or not, that's not the worst harassment I faced at that school from students or teachers. Inspire was known as the gay school, which in all fairness is true, but it meant if you were an Inspire student, you were an immediate target. I remember I was walking back to class from lunch, and this group of boys surround me on their Razor scooters. They start asking me out repeatedly. Eventually, I just tell them I'm gay, to which they respond, "Oh, so are you a boy?" And I answered honestly, "Kind of." So they went ahead of me to the gate and locked it. Then they demanded I climb the fence to prove to them that I was a real boy. Luckily, another student opened the gate for me when he saw this happen because I cannot climb a fucking fence. The harassment actually pretty much stopped when I started using my walker. No one wants to bully the kid with a walker, which is weird because I was thoroughly prepared for the bullying to get much worse. But take the wins when you get them. I wasn't harassed most of my junior and senior years because of it. I do remember one time I was on a ride at the Silver Dollar Fair and I hear someone off to the side yell, "Terrorist!" very loudly while pointing at me. The ride stops, my friend helps me into my wheelchair, and the boy's friends immediately start giving him shit for yelling that at a disabled kid. A lot happened at the fair that day. I ran into a friend from class. We weren't even really friends, but we interacted enough that it would be weird not to say hi. This friend, their mother's with them, and she said, before even asking my name, "Why are you in a wheelchair?" And before I can respond, this friend, who I barely know, chimes in because if they try to walk, they'll faint and die. I've actually been considering switching to a wheelchair full time. I only used it at the fair because the ground was too unstable for Violet to be of any help to me, but it was nice. The biggest issue is self-wheeling. I'm worried the repetitive motion will hurt my ribs. Of course, that would be fixed if I just had my service dog pull me like a sled dog, but I'm pretty sure he'd run us both right off a cliff.